Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to have everybody here. My name's John Warrillow, and I'm joined by my esteemed guest and co-pilot for this session, Marla DiCarlo. Marla is one of our favorite advisors in our network, is a prolific advisor, has done 1,000 value builder reports, and I think that holds some sort of record. Let me formally introduce you with your background. You've got your bean counter by training. By 8 years, I think you were a director of accounting in an M&A practice. So that's a fantastic background for obviously what we do. And then you did fractional CFO with Kaizen, and now more
Yeah,
recently, the founder and CEO and co-owner of Raincatcher. So thank you for joining us, Marla.
thank you, John. I'm glad to be here.
Do you hate it when people call you a bean counter?
I embrace it.
Bring the love.
That's right. Accountants
Great.
are fun.
What's that?
Accountants are fun. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't
yeah.
know that.
I can see a T-shirt coming. Um, you know, we wanted to have this session because you've been so successful with the platform, and we wanted to kind of get inside your head a little bit, in particular, how you deliver the value builder assessment. Having done 1,000 of them now, you've obviously learned a thing or two. So I want to frame that up for folks. Before we go there, though, Marla, if you don't mind, I'll turn to our attendees and just give them a little bit of a frame of reference. I think most of the attendees know the Value Builder system. Many of them know you, but I'll just, for those who don't yet, I'll just talk directly to those. And I'll actually fire up a couple of slides here. So let me see if I can do that and this. And let's see, does that show up on your end, Marla? Are you seeing my
Yes,
slides?
I do.
Great.
Yes.
So for those of you who are just joining us, it's great to have you here. Today's session is really about learning from one of our advisors. As I introduced Marla earlier, she is a tremendous asset to our community, and we'll share with you today how she delivers the value builder engagement. Again, if you don't know who we are, what we do, we help companies build their value leading up to an exit. Our goal is to level the playing field for business owners as they approach their exit. And we do that by licensing a platform, a software platform, and a set of IP and tools to professional advisors, M&A professionals, business brokers, coaches, consultants, who use it in a very kind of specific way. They use it to attract leads, qualify leads, nurture them, ultimately convert them and engage and monetize them. And so we've got different tools and recommendations for each of those 5 areas of what we do. Today, we're really going to spend some time on the conversion piece. So how do you take a business owner who has completed the Value Builder questionnaire, which is our sort of most prominent intake questionnaire, the questionnaire most people use to find us, and how do you convert that into some sort of paid engagement? And so to do that, what we thought we'd do is bring Marla on and do a bit of a role play for you. So the role play is going to be, I'm going to play the role of a business owner, and Marla is going to play herself as a certified value builder and someone who uses the value builder system. And we're just going to walk through sort of how Marla goes through delivering the value builder assessment. But before we get into that, I'm going to just jump back and over to GoToWebinar and ask you a couple of questions, Marla, because I'd like to know a little bit more about Raincatcher. What do you guys do? So you're in Colorado?
Yes, we're Denver, Colorado.
Where it's like 60 degrees one day and then like 3 degrees the next day. It's the
It's
weirdest
the
climate.
craziest weather, John. You can't even imagine. We will literally get 2 feet of snow, and I'm not kidding. The next day it's melted.
It's unbelievable. I remember I was there like in February once, and it was a snowstorm when I arrived. The next day we had lunch on a patio. Like
Right.
it was nippy. I was cold on the patio, but it was still, we were on a patio. So
Yeah.
Raincatcher, what do you guys do?
Yeah. So we sell businesses. We help entrepreneurs to take that next step, one of the most important events in their life, and make sure We do everything we can as a business broker to help them so they don't regret the decision of selling. It's incredible how many do, as we all know.
Yeah, yeah, it is a huge problem for a lot of owners, and one we hear a lot about. What
Yeah,
size of company do you typically sell? What would the
yeah,
sort of sweet spot be?
yeah. So we typically work anywhere between, we work, I'm going to say revenue because I think that's the easiest way to kind of put a placeholder. A million to 15 million is kind of our sweet spot. That's where we feel like we can add the most value, especially with exit planning. If there's an opportunity that we see in that with that business owner where they've created a great service, they created a great product, but they take that assessment and we're going, uh-oh, there's 3 drivers that they're scoring low. We like to take the time to be able to discuss that and how we can improve the value of their company before they take that next step.
So why bother? Because there's two schools of thought in the M&A world that I hear a lot. So there's a group like yourself who are like, no, let's get this thing ready to go to market before we go to market, and let's help you and coach you and consult with you and sort of get it ready to go. But there's another school of thought, another school of broker, another cohort of broker that says, screw it, I don't want anything to do with consulting. I want to sell companies. That's what I do. I want to do the transaction. But
Sure.
it sounds like in your case you've chosen the former. Why?
Well, because small business really matters to us. So it goes back to my days, just to make it quick, of when I did the M&A work. I saw so many business owners that it impacted me walking away from their business, realizing, wow, they just don't know what they don't know. And they have this incredible product, or they've got this incredible service offering, but they are never going to be able to scale or make the money that they could if they invested time and energy into the drivers that we talk about with Value Builder. And it matters to us. So as a company, we not only want to help those business owners to sell their company, we take it another level. We want raving fans. We want them to feel when they sell their business that they've done everything they can to maximize that value. And beyond that, that's where the pre-score comes in. That personal readiness. We spend a lot of time on the front end of the deal, interviewing them, finding out the reasons why they're talking to us. Have they thought about what they're going to do after they sell? Because as we know, and you do a great job talking about this on the pre-score presentation, a lot of owners regret that. They don't think about how much of their identity is tied into that small business. And
So
what are they going to do?
Marla, excuse me for interrupting. We should define pre-score for folks. So for those of you who don't know, pre-score is sort of the other half of the equation. With Value Builder Score, you measure a business's readiness to exit. With pre-score, you measure the owner's, the personal readiness to exit. So it's sort of the other half of the equation, prescore.com. Why do you care? So you care sort of at a purpose level. So there's definitely a sort of a purpose-driven business behind Raincatcher for sure. But take it down to sort of more practical, level. A lot of brokers will say every hour I spend, coaching businesses is an hour I could be spending selling them. So where do you land on that? Is this, what is the practical payoff for doing this kind of work?
Word of mouth referrals. I mean, it's really that simple. And you know what, John, I think the other thing is, yes, it's important to make money, right? And it's important to be successful at what you do. But I've got to wake up every morning and look myself in the face in the mirror and feel like I'm living my life with integrity. And sometimes I feel like we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day business that we forget about the fact that these customers that we're talking to, these business owners that want to sell their business, this is a very personal thing to them. And we we play such an important role in helping them to take that next step. We throw around this cliche all the time of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's a literal statement when you're a business owner. And so for us, that is, we have a lot of empathy around that. We want to make sure that these owners feel supported and feel like they can trust, the advisors on my team, and can trust that we're looking out for their interest before our own interest.
And do you charge people to go through the Value Builder, like what we're about to do this role play on? Like when you're walking them through their results? Again, in our community, some people charge for the results meeting, the assessment meeting, the one time sort of, and then other people do it sort of more as an investment in the relationship. Where do you guys land on that?
Yeah, so we use the assessment as a lead generator, and so therefore we do not charge for the assessment. Now, we do have some CEO peer groups that we work with that love the assessment, and so they'll send the client over, and we'll often charge them for that, but it's because we're providing insight and advice. We're actually advising them. We prepare an hour-long going over their Value Builder score, so that's different. But as far as the business brokerage, we use it as a lead generator.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful for sure. And by the way, I know we're going to have a ton of questions. If you have a question for Marla, you can drop it into the GoToWebinar control panel. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. You should see the questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Marla, before we get into the role play, would you mind sharing I gave your professional credentials, of which you have many. Would you mind sharing with the audience what you did early in your career? Because I think it's so relevant to what we're going to talk about next.
Well, I'm going to start at the beginning and do it quickly. So I tell everybody this because it talks about who I am. I went to school originally to become a social worker.
I think that's so funny.
I know.
It's so indicative. Our best advisor is a social worker.
I know it. I look back and I'm like, wow. But, and I mean, it did not work out. I thought much different than my peers in my human service classes, but that I tell people that because that's my core, that I care very deeply about making a difference in this world and helping others, and it's something I can't turn off. So, I was very good at math. I used to tutor, college algebra and other things, and my parents were entrepreneurs growing up. So I saw, how finances played a part in their decision making. So I became an accountant, and I know it just became an accountant. But the thing is that it really helped me in my career because accounting is the language of business. And if owners are not paying attention to their financials and they don't understand what's going on and they're not using that historical performance to forecast their future, they are operating blindly. So I fell in love with numbers very early because I saw, this is a tangible way to make a difference with business owners.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was also keen to combine the accounting background with the social work. I mean, that's got to be a combination you don't get very, very commonly. So it's great to have you bring it. Okay, so let's get into this role play. So again, we've got some questions. Michael's had a question. Brian's got a question. So I'm going to save those until after we do this role play. So again, for your benefit, the audience listening, do you see my screen again, Marla, if I share that? Okay. So hopefully everybody listening can see my screen, and this describes the kind of role that I'm going to play in this discussion. So I'm a fake business owner named John Stapleton. You may recognize this business as one that was in the book Built to Sell, if you've read that book. So I'm a hypothetical business owner. I own a graphic design studio. I have 12 employees. I have $3 million in annual revenue, and I'm looking to sell my business in the next 2 years. I think this is meeting 2, right? Marla, just describe briefly what we do in meeting 1 so they have context for this discussion.
Yeah, so some of our business owners will take the assessment, off of our marketing that we provide to them, but a lot of times we need to talk to them first to develop trust. I think one of the important things we didn't talk about too is our group uses the emotional intelligence in selling. We absolutely prepare for that phone call, but developing that trust, I think, is one of the most first important steps in getting them to have a second phone call. So what happens then, if they haven't taken that assessment, we encourage them to do that. And so on that first phone call, we explain the reasons why. What information will that assessment give them? Because
So what would you say?
We talk about the strengths and weaknesses. We talk about how the drivers are the 8 attributes that a buyer will typically look for, and that it's very difficult for us to come into the conversation and ask the right questions and value their business without knowing everything. And so it takes multiple phone calls to get there, and this assessment shortens that time frame.
So you're offering to accelerate their time to what they're looking for, which is evaluation, usually for their business.
Yeah, and then they love the fact that they can understand using the drivers, how they're performing. Again, the strengths and weaknesses of their business. If they're falling short in a certain area, we discuss the reasons why that can have impact. For instance, we always use the financial driver as a conversation starter. Because I think that's the number one area where most people have problems. John, can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, you just dropped off a little bit. It sounded like you went a little further away from the microphone. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry. My microphone is coming out of my ears, so technical difficulties. We're live.
No worries. It sounds fine, Marla. You mentioned you use emotional intelligence. I'm aware of there's a book called Emotional Intelligence. I'm aware of there's a thing called emotional intelligence. How do you use emotional intelligence in the sales process?
Again, I think it goes back to remembering that those customers we're dealing with, that this is a very personal event for them. It's different when you're dealing with a mergers and acquisition transaction. Most of those transactions, as most of our group, advisors know, you're going to have a seasoned CEO. You're going to have a group of professionals that have done this over and over and over again. There's processes, there's tools. Everybody knows what's going to happen. When you're dealing with business and business brokerage, most owners, this is a once in a lifetime event, and they're scared. They've done their research. It's amazing. Most of them know everything you're going to tell them when you talk to them. They just don't know if it's right, if it's wrong, what's the best practice. So that emotional intelligence helps to bring empathy, helps us to connect with them so that they understand that, hey, we're not just, talking the talk, we're walking the talk. Like we know your business. We know what you're going through.
Got it. Okay. So I've had the first phone call with you. You've convinced me to complete the value bidder questionnaire. I've gone online and I've done it. And here we are, ready to go through our results. So let's get started. I'll jump through to slides. This is our first slide, Marla. I'll just advance the slides for the sake of simplicity. I think there are 3 in total. So.
Okay, great. So, well, thank you, John. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. Following our last conversation, we were able to review your assessment, and now it helps us to be able to have a discussion about the strengths and weaknesses of your business. What did you think when you took the assessment? What was your initial impression?
Yeah, I mean, it got me thinking about my business, I guess, in a slightly different way. Some of the questions I was like, well, why are you asking that? But overall, it got me sort of thinking a little differently, actually, about my business, which was good. I'm dying to find out how I did.
Great. Well, so it worked because we got you thinking differently. You're just with what you said, it tells me that now you realize that there are other criteria, other factors that go into selling your business than just listing on an ad somewhere and waiting for buyers to come in, which is why we're having this conversation. So one of the assessment drivers came back, the Switzerland structure, came back at an overall score of 35. And I just want to make sure that you understand that the Switzerland structure is just one part of determining the value of your company. We use the overall assessment to help us create your marketing package and also to finalize your asking price. What is the true value of your company? And just so you know, just to give you a little history behind that assessment, and I think we talked about this the last time, two companies in the exact same industry with the exact same profit can have different scores because it depends on how much time you've spent in working on the different drivers. For instance, the Switzerland structure. So I want to ask you some follow-up questions if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Shoot.
Great. Okay. So one of the questions that you asked, or I'm sorry, that you answered, the question was, how difficult would it be to replace a person in your organization that leads your sales and marketing of your business? And you answered fairly difficult. So I would like, can you tell me a little bit more about that person and why you answered the question that way?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a head of business development. He's run his own graphic design studio for a few years, so um, he knows the business, he knows our business, and he knows the industry, I guess. There's a lot of people out there that say they can sell, creative services, but I found that actually being able to sell them is a bit more challenging. So he's done a pretty good job of that. So I think like I'm always leery of hiring salespeople because it's difficult to find ones that are really good. So I think, yeah, I think it would be fairly difficult to replace him.
Okay. How long has he been with your company?
Well, he's been with us for 6 years now.
6 years. Okay. So he's definitely an integral part of the business and important.
Yeah, for sure. He is.
Yeah.
I'd hate to lose him.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
Okay. So would you say that he handles, 90% of the sales and marketing of your business, or is it split amongst the team members and he's just someone that stands out? Can you tell me a little bit about,
Well, yeah, I
the
mean,
importance?
he's probably good for 60% of our revenue each month. I should say he's really focused on our new business. We've got
Hmm.
two account managers who manage our best clients, the ones that have ongoing work, and I guess they bring in work too, but it's more those account managers are more doing it uh, based on the relationship they have, whereas
Okay.
this individual I was referencing earlier is more kind of the hunter, so to speak. And then, of course, I still do a bunch of hunting too, right? Like, so probably of our new business, he probably is good for 60%, and then I'm probably still involved in 40% of the new business that we bring in.
Got it. Okay. That's important. And I didn't see on your score, on the answer asking those questions around how often you deal with customers. I think you said that it would be that you knew some of them by name. So if you're dealing with 40% of the sales, you probably know quite a few of them by name.
Yeah, you're right. I probably underestimated a little bit on that
That's
question.
okay. That's one of the great things about using this assessment is that it really helps us to uncover the right answers. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is these are areas that matter when you take your business to the market. And so there's a couple different ways to approach this. We'll go through your questions and make sure that you've answered all of them correctly so we have the right scores. But beyond that, if we find there are areas where I feel like, that could impact selling your business, and we may want to give that some attention, we can handle it a couple of ways. We have advisors that I can introduce you to that can help you with these areas, and it's incredible the difference you see in a minimal amount of time. I mean, I'm talking a month, 2 months, you'll start to see a difference.
Hmm.
If you don't want to go that route, then the other thing is that this will help us with tailoring your marketing package so that we're showcasing your business in the best limelight, if you will. We want to make sure that we don't lie, but we also talk about some of these areas that may be a concern to a buyer. And so
So
this
this stuff's going to
assessment is
help.
incredible. Oh, please, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say, so this stuff is not, it's not wasted time. You're gonna use this information for something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not only are we going to use this information to help us with the valuation of your company, which is the purpose of this phone call, it also helps us with preparing the marketing package and then making sure that you maximize the value of your business. I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and you've created an incredible company. But there's still some areas, that we could talk about working on to help improve that probability of closing, to help increase the type of buyers that you bring in. I know one of the things you said on our first phone call is that you want to make sure you bring in a buyer that appreciates all the hard work you put into your company and will take care of your employees. And that was important to you. And so the way that we market your business is going to be different than someone that unfortunately doesn't care. So this assessment plays into that conversation and ensuring that we find the right buyer. Does that make sense?
It does, for sure. For sure.
Great.
I've just advanced our slide, Marla,
Okay,
to
I was
the
going to say I
last
didn't know if
slide.
I should stop.
No, you can. I mean, you can keep going. This is the last slide. This is one other question that I've answered.
Okay. All right, Mr. Stapleton. So, John, you also answered on one of your questions that it would be difficult to replace the person that's in charge of your designing and delivery of your services. Can you tell me a little bit more about that person as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm the creative director, right? So that's me.
Okay.
So unless you're gonna replace me, I'm still the guy that does the design. Like I oversee. I've got a couple of junior designers that work for me, but like for any of the big projects, I'm very much involved in designing.
Okay, that makes sense. So one question I haven't asked you yet. What would you like to do after you sell? Would you like to stay on board for a certain amount of time, or are you looking to take off to Hawaii or Europe? What do you plan on doing when you sell?
Yeah, I mean, like I want out. When I sell, my wife's been after me for years to travel more, and so yeah, I'm ready to do some traveling.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. And John, remind me, did you take our pre-score assessment? We give you that opportunity, but some people don't take it.
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah,
Okay,
I did.
wonderful. Well, I'm definitely going to look at those answers too, because we want to make sure that you've thought about what happens after you sell your business. That's an important event, and a lot of people don't think about that. I know when I sold my company, I didn't realize how much of my identity was in that business. Those were my friends. That was what I did every day. And I didn't have my husband wanting to go travel. And so, I hadn't thought about what I was going to do with my time after that. So we'll talk about that too, because that plays an important part in selling your business and preparing to sell your business. But coming back to, it would be very difficult to replace you then in the design and delivery of your services. And so that could impact the type of buyer that we look for your company. It also could impact your valuation. And so I would love to talk through that a little bit more and give you some different, actions that we could take to help prepare for that, replace you before you take your business to the market, because that's a big deal. It definitely is a consideration, because most buyers are going to want to keep you on board then for a year or two minimum. And if you're the most important person in the design and delivery of your services, they may want to give you an earn out up to 5 years. And it doesn't sound like that's what you want. So I want to make sure that we talk through that, and you're shaking your head no.
No word out. That's fantastic, Marla. Let's pause there because I know the audience will have some questions, and let me see if I can pull those up. Yeah, so we've definitely got some questions coming in over the transom here. So again, just to frame what you've just gone through, Marla's done 1,000 value builder assessments. Her firm has done 1,000 value builder assessments. She's personally done hundreds of these conversations, and so she's learned a truckload about what works, what doesn't, and things to avoid, things not to say. Take me through your head now. Okay, so now we've done the role play. Now I want to hear. Now it's John talking to Marla again, not John Stapleton. John Warrillow talking to Marla. What are you when I say stuff like the design is like the whole company is resting on my shoulders? Basically, I'm the designer. What are you thinking? What are you trying to avoid saying at that point? Because because some of me, like a part of me would have been like, well, then, like, why are we having this phone call? There's no way you could sell your business, but you didn't say that.
Yeah, well, because that's where with Raincatcher, what we'll do is we'll take the opportunity for preparing them to sell then. So I already know by you saying that, the fact that you don't want to stay on with the business, that's not going to be a great sale. Maybe I find the right strategic buyer that goes, oh, this is perfect, but more than likely not. So what I'm going to do at this point is lead you more towards understanding the value of the exit planning. And if I can get you hooked up with one of our affiliates and you start working with them, I already know that they can make a difference and change that in 6 months, a year. And I'm willing to wait. I would rather wait to sell your business and have you do that.
How do you convert? Because I've come to you because I want to sell my business. I want to sell it in the next 2 years. My wife's already on to me because she wants to go travel the world. What's the talk track you would use to get me from really focused on selling to, hey, let's slow down a little bit and get you focused on exit plan? What would you say to make that case?
Yeah, so basically I'm doing it already. I mean, I'm already, as I'm going through those questions and I'm really finding out the details behind your answers, I'm already getting you thinking about, I didn't realize that was a big deal. I didn't realize that as the owner, me being so involved in the business was going to impact the valuation. And some owners choose, they don't care. You may be coming to me at a place, unfortunately, and this is where I'm hoping we're changing this, but you may be coming to me at a place where you're done. It doesn't matter what I say, you're done. But at least I'm educating you and letting you know that there are other options, so that when you do sell, you've made that decision. It wasn't someone kept that information from you. And so I just continue to take you down that path, and then you kind of make that decision of, yeah, let's talk with an advisor.
Got it. Okay. So you're definitely leading the horse to water, as it were, and letting them come to their own conclusion. What are there words, phrases, approaches that you found to be radioactive that you avoid at all costs?
Yes. Telling them their baby's not pretty. Like outright telling them you have a horrible business.
So don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't.
Okay.
And there is one thing that comes to mind immediately. Don't act like you know everything. People hate that. We do, right? Because not literally everything, but we know a lot. I've worked with over 500 business owners in my career. I mean, you've probably double, tripled that. But I learn something new every day. And this business is not going to be the same, even if it's the same industry, same profit. That's why I always start with that conversation. It's going to be different. So take the time to listen, take the time to ask the questions so that you really understand that business owner and what their needs are. Don't make the assumption you know what they need.
So, okay, so let me push back on that, because I know there are people listening and I can see their names and they're like, but I've done this for 36 years. I went to school. I've sold every business from big to small. I mean, that's why people are hiring me, because I'm an expert. What do you mean I'm not supposed to sound like an expert?
Well, I didn't say you shouldn't sound like an expert. What I said is that you shouldn't make the assumption that you know everything about that business owner. And I think that's the difference, right? So you need to have confidence when you're selling. You need to have the confidence. Listen, when I sit down with an owner, I'm going to make sure they know I have been doing this a long time, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've had a lot of success. But I need to get to know you, and I need to get to know your business in order for me to help you. And we're going to work together. We're going to do this together because you know your business the best, and I know best practices. And so together, we're going to make sure that we're, moving forward. And I think that's the difference. There's nothing worse when you listen to somebody selling and they're dominating the conversation, and then on top of it, they've made assumptions like it's almost like, oh, stop talking, because they make these assumptions that this is broken or this is wrong, and the owner's getting offended, as an advisor continues to talk because it's not true. So be an expert, but listen.
It's funny because when I said, oh, like all the design is like, I'm in charge of all the graphic design, I was kind of waiting for you to say, well, like, then we don't really have much to talk about. But you did a beautiful job of saying, so I think if memory serves, you said something to the effect of, well, we should talk more about that. And because and we should explore
Teeing it up.
more about that.
Yeah.
It didn't imply it was wrong. It was just, well, look, I'd really love to learn a little bit more about that and how that works. And, there could be some different ways we need to think about that and how that might impact. Like, it was very much nibbling at the edges as opposed to like direct.
Yeah, that's
It's good.
bad.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I can tell, again, I don't know if you notice it, but I can get the sense that there is a nurturing, like that doesn't surprise me that you started your career as a social worker, right? Like there's a very much like a therapeutic way that you go through it that makes me feel comfortable, and that I'm not feeling judged. I'm just telling Marla, how I answer the questions. It's good.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that's where the EQ, comes in, the emotional intelligence comes in,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something, it's not as important as it used to be, because now people have the internet and they educate themselves before, and they've already, most of the customers that come to us, the way we have our marketing set up, they've already made the decision if they are even interested in selling and if they want to work with us. What they're going to do now is make the decision, is this someone that I feel like can lead that process and that I feel comfortable working with? So I feel like that EQ is one of the most important first, second conversation, to bring that emotional intelligence into that conversation so you don't feel judged, because you have spent your lifetime building your business. Who am I to tell you that it's not worth anything, or there's nothing, you've made mistakes? You're going to hang up that call and go, what a jerk.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the questions, because we've got questions here from Michael, David, Vernon, Nancy, Scott, Jay, Kathleen also. I'm just going to read them out, Marla. If you don't want to answer them, you can just
I'll do my best.
answer that or whatever. Michael would like to say, do you monetize opportunities in financial planning and insurance while working with clients? Fairly straightforward question.
We do not personally make money off of that, but we absolutely refer and see the importance of starting those conversations early with our sellers.
And when you refer someone to like a wealth management firm, for example, do you get a spiff on that referral? Or maybe you can't tell me that, but.
It depends on the relationship. We have preferred affiliates that we really have kind of a close-knit group, or they're the first people we're going to think of. But we're always looking for new referral partners.
Okay, great. So, well, there you go, Marley. You might pick up a few today. You're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, and you can also go to our Raincatcher page, and about us, there's a preferred affiliate landing page that you can fill out your information.
Oh, cool. Okay, so maybe that's interesting to Michael. I'm assuming based on the nature of his question that he would have interest in that. DiCarlo is DICARLO, and we'll also put that in an email that you'll get about 2 or 3 hours after this webinar. You'll get a recording of it, so you can look up Marla on LinkedIn and connect that way. Another question here from David. David asks, Marla, can you describe the internal workflow of using the Value Builder system as a lead generator? Don't know how far into that you can go, but maybe I'll let you just answer it the way you want to.
It's a little more complicated than what we have time for. But what I will say is I think that's something to consider as an advisor. So when you come into the Value Builder group, I feel like sometimes people spend a lot of time just focusing only on how do I make money off of this report, but it's not, in my opinion, off the report. It's off of the way we think, our experience, what we offer to help them to grow. So maybe just changing how you view the report versus the actual process of the Value Builder system.
That's interesting. Vernon would like to know, what tool do you use for emotional assessment? Do you use any tools?
That's a good question, because that's something we've just started talking about. Right now we use the DISC assessment, and we don't have them actually take the DISC profile assessment, but we have a scoring card that tells us what personality type they are. But I'm actually looking for some new software to help us with that.
Around emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Vernon, for what it's worth, so DISC is one, obviously Myers-Briggs. The one that I love, and I got this from the Strategic Coach organization, it's called Kolbe. Have you ever heard of Kolbe?
Yes, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, so you've used Kolbe before?
I have, yeah. Okay. I actually used to use it in Kaizen quite often, more than the DISC. Do you like that better, John?
I do, because of its simplicity. I mean, I think it's a fairly simplistic personality assessment. I wouldn't say it's the most sophisticated, but I find I get marred in the detail too. If I get even a DISC profile, I get lost. I can't see the forest for the trees. Whereas,
especially if you get the, what is it, 75 pages?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Whereas with Kolbe, and for those listening, if you haven't checked out Kolbe, it's Kolbe. Kathy Kolbe is her name. It gives everybody a score on 4 dimensions. Everybody has a score. You're between 1 and 3, 4 and 6, and 7 and 10. On that dimension, if you're between 1 and 3, it means you actively move away from or try to eliminate that factor in your life. 4 to 6 are people that are sort of go along to get along. They're not going to initiate that behavior, but they're also not going to what's the word I'm looking for, Marla? Push it away. And then 7 to 10, you initiate that sort of behavior on your own volition. And so the 4 dimensions are fact finder, meaning you want information before making a decision. You need information before you make a decision. So people who are low on fact finder don't really need a lot of information before they make a decision, whereas people who are high on fact finder are very exhaustive in their decision making. They want all the details, all the information. Fact finder follow through is people who are good at following systems, so they initiate systems if they're high on follow through. Quick start is they've got lots of good ideas, lots of new ideas, but don't generally finish a lot of stuff. Lots of entrepreneurs are quick starts. And then implementer are people that are good with your hands. So people who are good with models and building stuff generally have high implementer scores. Anyways, what else would you add about Kolbe, Marla? You've used it.
Well, I would, when you said, if you're, there's nothing worse than someone that likes bullet points and you're telling a story, right? I'm a bullet point person. And so I have to really actively listen, because sometimes I find myself going, I have no idea what they've said the last 2 minutes. So understanding that is so incredibly important. And you can tell that right at the beginning of a phone call with someone. Do you agree with that? With the kind of what quadrant they belong in?
Sure. So if you ascertain fairly quickly that on the other end of the phone, the person you are doing a value builder assessment for is a quick start, how would that impact the way you deliver their results?
I better be very respectful of their time. And I'm going to ask them, so I have us down for another 25 minutes. Does that still work for you? And ask permission, because they want to get down to it. Don't waste their time.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Another question here from Nancy. Nancy asks, Marla, what are some of the things Raincatcher does in the first couple of months to show them results?
To show them results. So are we talking about, I guess, from the brokerage perspective, when we're working with them on the brokerage side, we have a checklist that helps them understand the process. And then we're very good about following deadlines.
Mm,
So, making sure that they are getting immediately something to review when they've given us something because, they're anxious and they want the process to happen. On the advising side,
yeah, the
I
value building
personally,
side.
yeah, on the exit planning side, I feel the most important way that you can show value is starting with our financials. I am just a firm believer in that. Almost everyone has messy financials or doesn't have a cash flow plan. So if you can put that in place, help them to get the accounts, the transactions, the right accounts, help them understand why you're doing that, and then help them to start to prepare a budget or even do a monthly cash flow. I think that's the best way to show value.
So a proper chart of accounts, a cash flow
Yes.
statement, looking out, what, 12, 16 weeks kind of thing?
Yeah,
How far?
yes.
Yeah.
And then also, a lot of times these owners have set up their chart of accounts for tax purposes, which is
Mm,
fine. But what they don't know is that they're not seeing a complete detailed picture of what's going on. And so there's a way, especially like in QuickBooks and Xero, where you can set up accounts and then tax map it. So the CPA still gets the information grouped together the way they want it, but you're able to present and review and help the owner understand their business at an operational level. And oftentimes I find that also owners have the catch-all accounts, right?
yeah.
Other expenses. You're like, what the heck is in here? There's
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah, yeah. What exactly is it? Other expenses. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a couple. That's in answer to Nancy's question. What are some of the ways that you show immediate value or immediate progress? Scott would like to know regarding the 1,000 assessments. And again, this may be something that you can summarize um, for him or not. He says, regarding the 1,000 assessments that you have done, how many of those have engaged with your firm, and what is the average transaction value of those engagements?
Um, sure, I'm happy to share that. So 60% of the people that come in typically end up being people we can work with versus, tire kickers, if you will, or really small mom and pop. As far as an average transaction value, I'm just going to leave it. Most of our businesses are listed somewhere between a million to, um, 25 million. So,
Great. That's helpful for sure. I think that gives some ballparks, Scott. Jake asks, um, how do you convey to someone that it would be hard to sell the company when its sales and or technology work relies on the business owner, and that buyers may have a strong preference for a business that doesn't rely on the owner or a key employee? I think Jake's asking for you to expand on the idea that we were talking about earlier, where I was the guy who was doing the graphic design in our little role play. So we've done the role play. You've nicely said, well, we should talk more about that and we should explore that. But now you're in the point where you've got to tell me, look, you can't be doing all the graphic design. It's going to be a disaster.
yeah.
How would you deliver that message?
Um, gosh.
Putting you on the spot here. So
uh,
I'll go back into role playing gear. So like,
yeah.
yeah, so we're a graphic design studio. Um, I've got a couple of junior designers, but I'm still the creative director. So any design that we develop, I personally approve. I personally get involved in picking the colors and the fonts, and I make sure that I look at the anything we're going to print. I'm the one who goes to the press and actually approves the thing before it goes to press.
Well, I mean that's great, John. That's one of the reasons why you've created a successful business. But you've said yourself that you are wanting to move on to something new, and so and that is correct. You don't want to stay, because there is an opportunity to stay on with the business if that's something you would like to do, but it doesn't
No,
sound
if
like
I'm
you want
leaving, I'm leaving. I don't want any earn out, any of that crap. No,
You're
I'm
out.
selling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So think about that then from the buyer's perspective, looking at your business. Okay. So if you are an integral part, you are that involved in the business, it would be a good idea for us to have discussions around, is there a way that we can document that? Is there a way that we can train someone else to handle that work who then can continue with the business? Because most of the time, a buyer's wanting to have a business from the operational level that is turnkey. That is something that they can purchase and they can read the documentation, or they can rely on the employees that continue with the business. And if you're not one of those employees that is going to continue with the business, that could affect the buyer's decision for how much they're going to pay, what type of buyers you're going to bring in, how many buyers. And so I think it would be worth exploring options there. It's not as complicated as you may think. And I would love to discuss that with you further on our next phone call if you're open to that.
Absolutely. Good stuff. That's Jake's question answered beautifully. Hopefully, Jake, you got a few tidbits from what Marla shared. Kathleen makes, I think, more of a comment than a question. She says, we can't possibly know everything. I think this goes back to the comments around being the voice of God versus the sort of more interested interviewer. We can't possibly know everything. We don't know what we don't know. And the professional who doesn't realize and accept that is just plain dangerous. Well said, Kathleen.
Well said.
We've got a seconder in Marla. Dave says, I think, again, more of a comment, but a wonderful comment at that. Marla, I appreciate so much your highly relational approach. So great comment from
Thank
Dave.
you.
Dave also says, Marla, I use a new one called UMAP. Check it out, myumap.com. I have no idea what that. Well, that's probably related to emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll check that out. Thank you for that.
Writing it down.
myumap.com. My like MY and then YOU map.com. Thanks for sharing that, Dave. Great suggestion.
Thank you.
I think it's Siri or I think I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Hopefully I am. Siri says there's an EI specific tool within the disk toolkit. So that's another option. Good. So Vernon says he actually has an emotional intelligence course that he offers. So we'll try to get some more information on that. And then Ross says, in the exit planning stage, I feel it's very important to understand the business owner's plans for moving forward with life to avoid the remorse period after the newness wears off. Does the assessment cover that? If Marla, hi Marla, this is Ross. So Ross is asking, I think you heard the question. What's your answer, Marla?
So if I heard him ask it correctly, he's basically asking about the personal readiness, right? And
that's right. Yeah.
To my knowledge, I don't think the changes we made on the value builder assessment addresses that. I didn't want to answer wrong. Okay.
No, they don't. That's why we built pre-score.
Right? Yeah.
So Ross, just so you're clear, we touched on it, Marla touched on it. There's kind of two tools that are used in the intake sort of stage. The one is called the value builder questionnaire, which is used to assess the business's readiness to exit, how dependent it is on its owner and so forth. And then there's the pre-score questionnaire, which is used to assess the personal readiness of the owner. So we look at questions around like, have they separated their ego from the business? Have they got some stuff that they want to go do that they're excited about, et cetera?
That's an incredible assessment, John. I mean, I feel like sometimes we talk so often about the value builder course, right? But that pre-score has opened up conversations that were really difficult to have with an owner because we're not counselors.
Well, you are, but I'm not.
Anyway, I wanted to bring that up. If anyone's hasn't looked at it, they should, because it has incredible value and it's very well done.
Well, speaking of well done, this was an amazing event. We got additional questions coming in over the chat, so we don't have time. So if we didn't get your question answered, we'll endeavor to do it over email. I want to be respectful of Marla's time. Marla, thank you so much for doing this. It is just a thrill to kind of learn your secrets and hear firsthand how you've been able to build this this rapport with owners around the assessment. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me today. I've
Yeah,
enjoyed our Q&A session.
My pleasure. I'm going to just leave you with a couple of thoughts. And Marla, can you see my screen again?
No, I don't see. It's black right now.
Okay, how about now?
No, still black.
Okay, maybe I didn't do that right. I'm going to leave you with, here we go. How about now?
Now I see it.
Okay, so just so everybody is clear, we have a really exciting event coming up in February. It's called the Value Builder Summit. I know many of you on the phone are joining us in Denver, so we're excited about that. Marla will be one of our featured speakers. She's going to spend a little bit more time talking about this 1,000 assessments that she's been able to do. We've got really it's a 4-day kind of shindig that I think you're going to get a ton of value out of. If you're not already a certified value builder, we would give you an opportunity to get your certified value builder designation on the 4th and 5th of February in Denver. And then if you already have your value builder certification, then you can just be there for the 6th and 7th, which is the summit. We'll have Cal Fussman there talking about building your own personal story, your own personal brand. He's arguably the world's best storyteller, having interviewed everyone from Muhammad Ali to Richard Branson. We'll have Ryan Dice, who Damon Johns, the guy from Shark Tank, called one of the best digital marketers in the world today. He's the founder of digitalmarketer.com. He'll be talking about how you can leverage digital channels. John Newenberg will be talking about habit making. Brian Drzezinski about using valuation as a way to sell value builder engagements. I'll be launching a brand new book at the summit, which I am so excited to share with you as our sort of launch party, if you will. So if that's of interest to you, please do get in touch. You can head over to valuebuilder.com/demo or drop us an email, support@valuebuildersystem.com. So again, on behalf of Marla, thank you so much for joining our session today. Hope to see you in Denver. Thanks everybody for coming out today.
Thanks.